Okay, we're back. And I actually, believe it or not, I don't think that was my fault. I'm just looking up at my internet connection and it would appear the Australian NBN has let me down again. It's the internet has stopped, so I don't know why. I'm actually now transmitting through my phone. I apologize. I think in this particular instance it actually wasn't my fault. Anywho, so we were talking about vistas and all sorts of things. For those of you who were watching at the beginning, thank you for hanging around. There's a few of you that have come across and been able to find the Biggles on Toast. Yes, the NBN has let me down once again. Okay, so we are going to get to questions today. You're all jumping in there. I'm just waiting for you all to get across, and we've got some people jumping over. I do apologize. This is the frustrating. I was waxing lyrical before in the other video about how wonderful the internet is and the fact that we can all come together globally. It's great until you have technical difficulties like the Australian NBN where everything falls over and whatever. Anywho, so we're going to get into today's Q&A. Thanks for sticking around, and I hope I think the next, well, probably only about 20-30 minutes now, will be well worth your faithfulness to the show and to us as a group. Before we do go to the Q&A, so I was talking about the idea of the word vistas to sort of describe us as a group. I'm keen for you to put up your hand as some ideas that you might have, and for those of you who have questions, don't forget to leave them in the notes section. Apologies, if you're watching this as a replay, you're going to be completely confused because I'm going to have to delete the start, which was a completely different video now. I'm going to have to delete that in a second. We had technical difficulties. We're going to get right into Q&A. That's all today is going to be about. What a mess. We should never work with animals, children, or technology. I'll see you in a sec. Okay, I can actually hear sirens in the background, can you believe, coming from the school. I'm hoping that my internet dropping out and what have you doesn't have something to do with that. I'm sure it doesn't, but it's still a bit disquieting. Okay, so let me just, I'm going to start by answering some questions. Now, where can I go? Where I can, here's where I want to go. So I'm going to start by answering some questions that we didn't get to last week when we had Jessica Baldwin on the show. I'm going to start with Abhishek's question: which is your best vocal exercise, Dr. Dan? And I wonder whether he means favourite exercise. Abhishek, my favourite exercise is the one that's most appropriate for whatever is most appropriate in while you're doing the exercise. Vocal exercises are fun, and you certainly can do them just for the sake of doing them. But where vocal exercises really come into their own is when you're doing them for a purpose. And we certainly want to make sure that we're always applying the right exercise for the right reason. And this is what I think some people misunderstand about vocal exercises, is they have a purpose. They're not just for warm-ups, though many vocal exercises can be used for warm-ups. That's not their fundamental, their inherent reason of use. A vocal exercise typically is designed to work a very specific area of your vocal function, whether it be breath management, vocal agility, technical things like twang or belt. And so what we do is, as vocal pedagogues, is we design exercises to specifically work on specific activities. So I don't know, Abhishek, whether I can say I have one particular favourite exercise. I guess if I was pushed to kind of identify an exercise that I think has a multiplicity of value, I would go to the lip bubble would be one. That would be one. Straw phonation is one that is more and more coming into, it's been in vogue recently, but I think that's for good reason. It's got a lot of benefits. So yeah, that I hope that answers your question, Abhishek. I don't know that we can sort of say this exercise is my favourite per se. Michelle has asked, how do you adjust, modify breathing exercises for asthmatics? I'm going in my bad season and need to be careful. What would you recommend as a safe, gentle warm-up when you have to go on? I have a throat infection but cannot take time off my teaching job, so I want to protect my voice. Yeah, look, Michelle, and I've read a number of your comments and commentaries around your asthma, and both on YouTube and over on, I've seen some of the commentary that you've left in the Voice Essentials Community Facebook group. And I just, your asthma is from what I can gather, is a very severe case of it. And I think really we've got to be, the challenge with everyone's asthma is identifying the triggers for your asthma. Is it, for some asthmatics, it's pollen. For some asthmatics, it's food. For other asthmatics, it's exercise. And so you have to identify what are the triggers for you, and then it's a matter of adjusting and modifying your breathing activities around that. And as I say in my video about asthma, Michelle, which I do believe you've watched, it is really about making sure that sometimes for some asthmatics, deep inhalation is the very thing that will trigger their asthma response. So you do have to be careful of that. What should I do? This is from Zolly. What should I do if I tend to sing flat all the time? Zolly, I do have an exercise on singing out of tune, and if you look at singing out of tune on my channel, if you go across to the channel, click on the video tab, and just search through for a singing out of tune, which is, I think, a video that I did last year. There is one there about singing flat, and I think you'll get a lot of value out of that. Lucas has asked, out of all the books, we answered your question very quickly, Lucas, last week. And what is what out of all the books that you have recommended, Dr. Dan, what is the one we should read first? And in fact, if you remember, Lucas, I actually said it would be, and this gives me another opportunity to advertise our next week's guest. Let me bring me back. Next week's guest is the one. So Lucas was asking, out of all the books that you have recommended, Dr. Dan, what is the one we should read first? Look, I actually think there's a number of the books on the list. For those of you who haven't seen it, there's a video that I did about the top 5 books for every beginner singer. And Lucas was asking which one should we read first. Well, actually, a lot of those you probably should read first. I know you can't read them all first, but this is one that is a very much a go-to for me. It's so dense with great information, and you guys will have heard me and seen me reference this many times in my videos. And our guest next week on the show is none other than Dr. Wendy LeBourne. And I'm really hoping we can get Marcy on the show next year, but we'll have to wait and see. So this is a great book, and we're going to get to meet and talk with the author next week. So I hope you'll tune in for when hopefully we don't have more technical issues. Oh, dearie me. Okay, Matt, one of our regulars here, when singing in your lower register, is there more reverb or does it just feel like it? I seem to feel vibration in my face when I sing bass. Well, lower frequencies, Matt, do give more reverberance. Yeah, and so that's why you can use lower frequencies to unstabilize things, and sound frequencies are used in construction and business and demolition and all those sorts of things for those reasons, because a lower frequency can actually grab something, and in many respects, and I'm no seismologist or expert in earthquakes or anything like that, so please don't leave comments suggesting that I suggest that I am. But in some respects, an earthquake is actually happening at a frequency, and so that slow rumble of an earthquake is actually happening at the lowest of unheard to us frequency, and so that's where we get that reverberance from through the earth. And so so when you are at Matt as a bass singer yourself, you are feeling your bass voice reverberate quite readily, and so that's, yes, you can. It's not that you've got more reverb in your voice. The human voice doesn't have reverb per se, but you may well be experiencing the sympathetic vibrations of your voice in your body, and so you're experiencing very real and very normal things there, Matt. So coming down to here, today's questions, and I'm glad I had thought, Linda, that I was going to say, oh, don't worry about the question sheet today, we'll do it old school and what have you. I'm so glad we didn't, because otherwise we would have lost everyone's earlier questions. Tapan Tripathy Official asked how to develop a deep voice and huskiness in the voice. Tapan, I've got another whole video on husky voice on the channel. You can jump over to the videos and have a watch of that. And developing, and I've also got a whole video dedicated to developing the deep voice. And in fact, we had a guest on the show about 9 weeks ago, and Dan Mitten, and he is a bass voice specialist, and he was talking about that. But you'll also get some good conversation going with Matt, one of our regulars here, because Matt is a bass vocal and he loves to talk about bass. So you can strike up a good conversation with him, perhaps over at the Voice Essentials Community Facebook group. If you're not already a part of it, jump over, ask to become a part. We a part of the group. We allow everyone in, and so you can certainly do that. I'm going to just jump over. Oh, hang on a second. I'm going to jump over here and bring us over to, so you can sort of read more of the questions, everyone there. Anthony has asked, my voice teacher tells me and is training me to be able to sing up to B flat 4 in my chest voice, but I am usually considered a baritone. I would like to know if you agree with her because it feels high. Oh, Anthony. Well, firstly, Anthony, what I don't do here is comment unprofessionally towards other singing teachers. If your singing teacher is doing that, then I would encourage you to go in to openly communicate with her about the way it's physically feeling. I had told everyone in the previous video that fell over just before, I've got a new video coming out, not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday, about voice classification. And Anthony, I would really encourage you to watch that video in detail, beginning to end. I'm going to cover 3 areas that are going to give you an absolute deep insight into your voice classification. We're going to look at your vocal range, and that's where most people stop. They think that their voice classification is all about their lowest note and highest note. Well, that is a part of the picture. On top of that, you have to place your prima voce, and we're going to talk about that. And then in that video, it's a big video, and I've actually spent some animation dollar on it. You're going to love it. We talk about the anatomical factors that It's when you combine all three of those things that you get a really clear insight into what your voice type actually is. And when you do, and I've got a worksheet that you're going to be able to download as a part of that video, it's fantastic. I want you to go through that process, and that will give you a clearer insight into what your voice classification might be identified as right now, as you know, as in when you do the worksheet. And then what can happen though is a good singing teacher can come alongside you and say, you know, you're identifying as in this case, a baritone. I'm hearing X, Y, Z. Perhaps we can explore your upper registers and see whether, in fact, the boundaries of your vocal range are actually beyond what you perhaps have thought of originally. And I do encourage the exploration in the video, not this Wednesday, but next. I do encourage the exploration and extension of range, but you can have a watch of the video, Anthony, and look at that. Certainly, if you are a baritone, a B flat 4 in chest voice, yeah, it seems high. Peyton has asked, what is the key to singing in the tenor range and expanding my belting range? Well, Peyton, I've got a whole video about belt voice. I'd love you to have a watch of that on the channel. What is the key to singing in the tenor range? The key to singing in the tenor range, Peyton, is to be a tenor. You know, we have kind of, certainly in Western culture, I think, we've bought into a bit of a lie that says you can be all things to all men. You can't. I'm born 5'8" Now, as much as I might want to be 6'2", I'm never going to be 6'2". I am 5'8", period. That is my anatomy. That is my lot in life. Now, you know, if you're born with an apparatus that is anatomically baritone, there is nothing that anyone can do to change that. Certainly at this point in history, and certainly not safely. Can you learn to explore higher notes as a baritone? Yes, you can, in accordance and in keeping with your anatomical and biological limitations. Now, the exciting thing about voice technique is that for most of us, we're not fully realizing the full capacity of our vocal range. And so when we apply technique, we suddenly go, oh, wow, look I can sing higher, I can perhaps sing lower. That's not to say you've suddenly added, you know, any notes to your range. It simply means that you've started exploring the full potential of your voice. And so, Peyton, the key to singing in the tenor range, as I said, is to be a tenor. The vast majority of the male population, and it's kind of like a bell curve, the majority of the male population is baritone, maybe weighted towards, you know, some people would like to think they're high baritone, with the outliers actually being the tenors and the basses. And it's the same with female voice. The vast majority of women are mezzo-sopranos, with the outliers being altos and sopranos. And so, you know, if you are a baritone, then well, that's cool. You're amongst many fellow baritones. Let's move on. R-Pit Go Hill. Sir, I have a stammering and stuttering problem. What to do? R-Pit, that's not really my, it's not at all my area of expertise. Stammering and stuttering is a very specific issue that actually has a range of reasons, and so it's a matter of finding yourself. I would start off by finding myself with a really highly qualified, specialized speech pathologist in the area of stutter and stammering, and for some people, some of the treatment is going to be to do with your breath flow and what have you. But it's not really my place to give you instruction in this area. I would highly recommend that you spend some time with a specialist speech pathologist in the area of stutter, and they'll then be able to direct your path from there. Here's another question from Lucas. What audio software do you recommend we use to record? Whatever you can make work and get the most out of, Lucas. For example, on my videos, and I know this is a different subject to audio, but just talking in the general theme of production, I don't use a high-end computer program, a software program to develop my videos for you guys. I use what would be referred to as prosumer. So it's a good quality home office kind of program called Cyberlink Power Director. Now, the industry standard is another completely different thing called Final Cut, or no, it's the Adobe suite, Premiere Pro, and the reason I use the program that I use is because I started using Power Director back in its second, but this is back over a decade ago when I was editing family videos and stuff, and I have grown in my editing skills with the program itself, and so I've stayed with it because I know it. I know how to use it. I'm efficient in my workflow with it, and so the same. Look, if I was starting today, I would probably start with Premiere Pro. But I'm not starting today, and so I don't have time to learn a whole new piece of software. It's the same with audio. Find a program, and whether it's Logic or Pro Tools, which is the other audio program, and start using that, and get to know it and learn it. And look, YouTube, as we know, is such an effective space to develop some know-how around these sorts of things. So, just dive in and start exploring and experimenting, and that's what I would be doing. Ty Petty, what can I do if I'm able to match pitch, manage breath, and all of that, but the voice is general, just sounds bad even after drinking water and properly warming up? Ty, that's a hard question to answer given that I haven't heard you, number one, and number two, there are a whole range of other factors. Generally when we talk about the voice being not where we would like it to be, and we're thinking about things like, we'll generally approach two things. We'll talk about pathologies, so organic pathologies. Is there something wrong with the voice as far as is it sick in any way? And the only person that can diagnose that for you is a laryngologist or a less specialized ENT, and they can have a look at your voice and strobe your voice and see if there are any pathological concerns. But if there aren't any pathological concerns, then there can be functional issues, and functional issues can then have a really significant implication upon the health of your voice, and so I would be encouraging you, Ty, to find yourself with a good singing teacher, and start stepping through maybe some process about identifying where are the weaknesses of your singing technique and sound development and those sorts of things. Cockney, good to have you as always, Cockney, in the show. Welcome. Hey Dan, hope you and the family are keeping well. We are keeping well, thank you. You touched on accurately classifying our voices earlier. How would we get about getting an accurate classification? Well, Cockney, I think you're referring to our first take this afternoon, the video that dropped out. Please watch the video next Wednesday, not this Wednesday, but next. It is going to go into quite a bit of depth for you, Cockney, in identifying your voice accurately. Look, I think the two top performing videos on YouTube around this subject, both advertise the idea that you can do it in a minute, and I don't subscribe to being able to do it that quickly. Doing it so quickly exposes the process to inaccuracy. So watch my video, my new video coming out Wednesday week. Watch it beginning to end, and I think it will have stepped you through accurately identifying your voice classification in the moment, and hopefully you find that helpful. Mattis Tan, hi Dr. Dan, what is your opinion on whistle register? Mattis, my opinion on whistle register is I like it. I wish I could do it. And you might think to yourself, well, what kind of a singing teacher are that you can't do it? Actually, anatomically, as we understand it currently, some voices anatomically are able to posture in the manner, the vocal folds are able to posture in the manner that can set up and do whistle tone, and some, it would seem, can't. So, for example, some of you can roll your tongue. Yeah? Some of you cannot. And that's not, if you can't, it's not your fault that you can't, it's your genetics that decide whether you can or you can't. It's a bit like the height question we were talking about before. You don't get to decide your height. You don't get to decide whether you can roll your tongue. It's just what you were born with. And it's the same, the current understanding is that it's the same with whistle register. Some vocal folds will posture, and because when we create whistle, well, not we, because it's not me, I'm not able to do it. The people that can posture with whistle register, they're only using about the first half of the vocal folds, and only the first half coming together and oscillating. It's a very specific posture of the vocal folds, and so hopefully that is helpful. I do have a video all about that, Mattis, that you can check out. I know there is a certain, this is from Bartek, another of our regulars. I know there is no certain rule, but can you tell me the approximate amount of time needed to get from absolute zero to professional level of singing? And Linda's actually identified here that Michelle has already responded to you, Bartek, by saying how long's a piece of string. And do you know what? That's actually probably the best answer that anyone can give. There is no, I don't know the answer to that. What I do say to people is, for those people who join me for private lessons, privately, one-on-one, fortnightly, my observation is it does take approximately 18 months to 2 years, having fortnightly individual lessons. I'm going to be building caveats all around here. When the student is diligent with their practice, and applies the technique and the work appropriately that's being asked of them. So there's so many factors around this. It takes between 18 months to 2 years to form a foundational technique that is solid and is going to stand you in good stead. That is so countercultural. That answer, I know, I'm just listening to myself. That answer is so countercultural to today's, quick fire, consumer-driven, easy answer, put no work in and, get all the results out culture. And the challenge of good technique is it takes time. And I know that you guys have come across singing teachers here on YouTube that sort of advocate for this sort of really quick fix, sort of, do, A, B, C and you'll be right, mate. It just doesn't work like that. Look, if it did, then people like me wouldn't exist. And there are tens of thousands of great singing teachers worldwide who, day in, day out work with their clients. And the reason they do that, and they have to do that over extended periods of time, is because it takes time. There's no shortcuts. And so, look, I know that I'm preaching to the choir here. It really is something that just takes time. And so I always say between 18 months to 2 years for a solid basic technique. If you're having a fortnightly lesson, it can certainly, the momentum and the progress can happen a little quicker if you're having weekly lessons. But for some people it will take longer because every voice responds differently. And so that's, we come back to Michelle's response to you, Bartek, and that is, how long's a piece of string? Once and future king. How are we going for time? We're going to have to finish up soon. Once and a future king. The bigger the voice gets, the flatter it gets. This is common and scientific. Is it? I'm not sure. It's scientific that the bigger it gets, the flatter it gets. It might be that if the voice under load, once and future king, runs the risk of having, if you've got too much subglottal pressure, then the thyroarytenoid muscles may be wanting to brace against that. Then that exposes the voice to not being able to accurately perform pitch. But anyway, that is, the thyroarytenoid muscle is both a vocal strengthener and a pitch lowerer. Yes. Justin Stoney told me, is he right? Well, I wish I had read the whole question. Yes, that is in part what the thyroarytenoid muscle is doing. You've got to remember that the thyroarytenoid, the TA muscle, is working in an antagonistic, agonistic relationship with the CT and CA muscles, the cricothyroid and the cricoarytenoid muscles. And so the fabulously fascinating thing about the vocal folds, and the thyroarytenoid muscle is basically the body mass of your vocal fold, the vocalis muscle. The vocal folds don't just lengthen and shorten, and so they don't just, higher, lower. They also will just depend on whether they have a little bit of contact or a lot of surface contact. Beyond that, we also have, are they coming together for the shortest of moments? So this is what's called the open-closed quotient. Or are they coming, so if you've got a short closed quotient, then it's coming together for brief a moment, but it also might be coming together for longer periods of time. This is all happening at a split second, mind you. And so if you've got a longer phase quotient, then you're going to have a louder sound, whereas if you have it's going to be quieter. So Justin is, in my humble opinion, a really good vocal pedagogue. One of the few channels that I feel very comfortable to direct people to. I think he does a great job, and he seems like a really nice guy. I haven't met him personally, but certainly his camera persona seems like he's a nice dude. And so I've got no reason to cut across him other than to say I would add to the question that you've asked him, and say that there's more going on than just whether it's higher or lower. Now, Karen has responded to you, who is also a person I would recommend you subscribe to for her channel. Yes, the TA muscles are vocal fold shorteners and play a role in lowering the pitch. They also provide medial compression of the vocal folds, which adds vocal. There we go. See, birds of a feather. That's basically Karen just said it in far less time and is exactly what I just said, and she's said it with so much more grace and aplomb. So I'm going to move on because we do need to finish up in a second. Lauren, what are the best exercises for singing on pitch? Well, there's a whole range of videos on my channel, Lauren, which I want to direct you across to that I think will answer all of that for you, and so I can move on to the next question. How can I avoid the yodeling when I shift my voice? Bitoy Star Cruise, I think what you're experiencing there is probably registrational transitions. Go and have a look at, I've got a video on there called Smooth Vocal Breaks. I think you'll find that interesting. Sorry to be shoving you all over to the videos, but I just want to finish up here in a second. How do I get rid of nasally tone? Again, Jaden, Occo, I think there's a whole video, there is a whole video on this subject, reducing nasality. And you can go and check that on my channel. Look, we have over 400 videos over on the Voice Essentials channel, and you know, if you cannot find a video that answers your question on my channel, then firstly, I'm surprised. Secondly, let me know, because then I'll make a video about that subject, and make sure. Well, I won't make let me backtrack there a second. There are some things that I don't make videos about because I don't feel qualified enough or experienced enough in certain fields, and so I don't make commentary about it. So I won't make a video about every question you ask, but if there is a really good subject that you guys come up with, then as you know, I'll often make a video about that. Okay, we're going to give the last question to Anthony. And then we're going to finish up. Dr. Dan, at what notes do you personally begin to use your mix or head voice? That is, at what notes do you begin to resonate more in the head than in the chest? Anthony, without sounding pompous about this, what I tend to do is allow the song to dictate that. So, because it's the narrative of the piece that I'm choosing to interpret that then determines what color of sound that I'm going to want. Now, if I'm doing it in an exercise, then it will often be my sense of vocal condition that will determine where my voice will comfortably want to transition. So if I'm feeling a bit vocally fatigued, then I'll probably transition a little bit earlier into my upper register, and then I'll transition up into falsetto. Sometimes I might not even go to falsetto if my voice is feeling a bit tired and a bit fatigued. So Anthony, there's sort of not a simple answer to your question per se. Well, everyone, that's been a pretty wild ride today, hasn't it? My internet, my landline internet still is not back online, so I don't know what's happened there. For some reason, we've lost internet. Fortunately, we're able to do it via my mobile coverage, so that's a good thing. Thanks for hanging around. I hope it's been a really productive spend of your time these last 40 minutes or so. Don't forget, we've got the fabulous Dr. Wendy coming next week, and she is a singing voice specialist. I know she's going to be awesome. I'm going to be fanboying it along with many of you. I really do hope that you can join me when hopefully we don't have the same. I hate it if we have technical issues, if we have a guest. I will do my utmost to ensure that doesn't happen. But look, you know, it's what happens on the big jobs. I know when you tune in next week, hopefully that won't happen. I look forward to seeing you all again when we tune in for another live Essentials, Voice Essentials Hangout. I'll catch you all next week. I'm Dr. Dan. Sing well.